Administrator, it's been a little over a year now since you left public office. I wonder what it's been like.
Well, I can tell you I've gotten a lot more rest, and it's really good to be able to drop my son off at school every morning. I enjoyed my time in Washington, D.C. Leading the EPA, and very proud of the record, but also enjoying being back in my home state. It's good to be home.
I wonder, during your time at the EPA, you got to North Carolina a lot. What's it like to put actions in place, policies in place, and now you're living it? Now you're just you're a U.S. citizen, and you're seeing some of the implementations, I imagine. Yes. What stands out to you? Well,
listen, I was very proud of what the agency did for the nation, but to come back home to North Carolina, where we pushed billions of dollars into water infrastructure. I get a chance to see the fruits of the labor from electric school buses traveling every morning. You know, some of the stringent standards we helped put in place to control PFAS and other forever chemicals. It feels really good to be on the other side and see that those investments mattered, but also to see private capital beginning to match those dollars to keep that momentum going forward.
Well, I want to get your thoughts on some of the things that are happening at the EPA currently. Most timely right now is President Donald Trump recently revoked the 2009 endangerment finding. Of course, that's been the long central basis for U.S. action to regulate greenhouse gas emissions and fight climate change. What's your reaction to that, and how do you think that will impact how the U.S. fights climate change?
Well, listen, it's dangerous. It's flat out dangerous from a public health standpoint, and it's not strategic in terms of these technology standards and rules provide certainty for investment. America is best when we're leading, and we're just not leading right now. America also needs a strong EPA to protect public health, to protect the environment, but also to give industry and the private sector some certainty for these longer term investments. So it's flat out dangerous, but it's also not strategic. We need to be leading on the global stage from a technology standpoint that reduces these pollutants.
Well, President Trump said the regulations had nothing to do with public health and that it was all a scam, a giant scam. For people who don't follow this endangerment finding, can you just talk about what the EPA did under your leadership, how this sort of, what the impacts of this would look like?
Well, let's take a step back even before my time, where the Supreme Court instructed the EPA to look at some of these dangerous greenhouse gas emissions and determine at what level they should be regulated.
Under the Obama administration.
Under the Obama administration. So there was a scientific process that was followed to determine that these greenhouse gas emissions are dangerous to public health. Interestingly enough, this administration is not revoking or removing themselves from reducing these pollutants, arguing against the science. They're just flat out abdicating their responsibility and saying that EPA shouldn't be regulating these pollutants. So we put some very strong regulations in place that leverage economic benefits, technology standards, and protected public health with our tailpipe emission standards, our emission standards focused on power plants, coal plants, natural gas plants. All of these are driven by technology and market changes as well. We also recognize that this is happening globally. And so we weren't doing any of this in a vacuum. And, you know, taking us out of the game, again, is dangerous for public health, but it's also not strategic when you think about being globally competitive.
To those who say the regulations that were put in place by the EPA under your leadership were burdensome to companies or to everyday people, what do you say?
Listen, there's always been a fair argument about how stringent a regulation should be, how fast we should go to reduce the pollution. That's the conversation that I had with CEOs of industries across all of the spectrums. None of these conversations ever said the science was false and let's toss the baby out with the bathwater. And so not only are we removing ourselves from a competitive position to develop technologies to compete with the rest of the world, we are endangering our people at home from a public health standpoint, and we're exacerbating the climate crisis that most of us are seeing with our own eyes.
Well, and you also have the U.S., of course, pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. Second time this has happened.
Yeah.
So I wonder what impact you think that has on the U.S.'s reputation with other world leaders. Can the U.S. be taken seriously when you get into something and then you pull out?
Well, listen, when we came into office and when I engaged with my international counterparts, that was top of mind. Are you really back? Can we really trust your leadership? We want to be with you. Let's run together. And now, fast forward to today, they are seeing America not lead. It absolutely does reputational damage to this country. We're a resilient country. We can and will bounce back. I have a lot of confidence in the courts. We follow the law, we follow the science. I think it's popular belief by most Americans that greenhouse gas emissions do exacerbate storms, heat, and public health damage. And so I feel I'm optimistic. You know, I guess the word is optimistic. I'm optimistic that the courts will see that we follow the law, follow the science, and that this will be a pause.
Some, not to put down your optimism, but some environmentalists would say, boy, this feels like a really difficult time if you're in the business of electric vehicles, if you're in the business of green energy, if you're in the business of fighting climate change.
Well, listen, there's no doubt that this is a tough time. But you know, you have peaks and valleys in life. I think that we have to have a fighting spirit. I think we have to have trust and belief that we did the right things the right way, and now the courts will have to determine that fate.
What stands out to you as your proudest accomplishment at the EPA?
You know, I have a lot of very proud accomplishments, but I believe that our EPA put more seats at the table. I believe that we had a broader representation of emission reduction strategies that protected more people, especially those who were more vulnerable, our lower income, many of our minorities, many of those who did not have a political voice to say we deserve cleaner air and cleaner water. So we expanded the tent. We also leveraged our data and our technology standards to be sure that we covered more people, protected more people. I'm very proud of that sort of record. Whether it's, you know, reducing the elevated cancer risk by 97% for some communities in Louisiana, or, you know, the aggressive direction we took to rein in forever chemicals, protecting over 100 million Americans from contaminated water. We were moving forward in a very strategic way, leveraging technology and markets, and unfortunately, this administration has decided to take us backwards.
Well, I had a feeling you would bring up PFAS because obviously that was something you also worked on when you ran the DEQ in North Carolina. Obviously, we have seen significant rollbacks from the Trump administration when it comes to PFAS or forever chemicals. Limits on 3 types of PFAS, including Gen X substances, which of course were found just not far from here at the Cape Fear River. What impact do you believe that will have?
A significant impact. We spent 4 years developing a PFAS roadmap. We were very thoughtful. We leveraged the science, we looked at opportunities for new technologies, but more importantly, through the bipartisan infrastructure law, we received billions of dollars to invest in rural and small communities so that we could rein in this pollution. This administration is abdicating its responsibilities. They have attempted to vacate many of the rules that we put in place, and the court said no. And so for some rules now, they're just extending the compliance date. Well, that puts a lot of people in harm's way. And I think it's just downright dangerous.
Was it a surprise to you, because you talk about some of the issues when it comes to the environment, climate change, electric vehicles, they are sometimes controversial, but there's bipartisan support when it comes to combating PFAS. Was this a surprise?
It is very much a surprise. I think it's a surprise to me. I think it was a surprise to MAGA moms. I think it was a surprise to most people who understand that clean drinking water, it's a right, it's not a luxury. And again, this country made so much progress in looking at how to scientifically and technologically rein in these forever chemicals, and now we're moving backwards.
So when you remove the federal regulation, who does it fall on? What's a locality, what's a state to do?
You know, listen, I think states have to really be creative, and they have to use their resources to develop health standards so that they can develop regulations to protect individual states. And you have a patch quilt work across this country, which really, absent that uniformity, you don't have equal protection under the law. It really is a tough situation for states that rely on the partnership of the federal government.
A couple last questions. Biden administration obviously spent a lot of time on electric vehicles under the Inflation Reduction Act. That was significant. We've seen, though, a significant decline in EV sales in really the past year or so. Is the U.S. just not ready for these vehicles yet?
Absolutely, we are ready. And we see that with the request for electric school buses in blue and red districts all across this country. Listen, I think we put in place some really good incentives to help jumpstart and catch up with the rest of the world. We were on our way. Again, the discussion around whether or not the rules were too stringent or we were moving too fast, those are the types of conversations we're accustomed to having. Throwing the baby out with the bathwater makes absolutely no sense from a public health standpoint, nor from a competitive standpoint on the global stage.
You see the dip in sales as only temporary?
Well, I do. I see the dip in sales as temporary because I believe that there is a lot of political rhetoric out here that would lead one to believe that it's a bad investment long term, because we won't have the charging stations, we won't have the incentives, and there will be additional taxes levied on those who pursue electric vehicles. All of that noise begins to dampen the market.
I just want to go back real quick to the climate change question, because we saw a lawsuit about that, I think, this week regarding this endangerment finding. I think you said this before, but you think the courts will find in favor and step in on this?
I'm hopeful. We follow the science, we follow the law. We were regulating these pollutants in accordance to the direction we received from the Supreme Court the first time around. So listen, they were smart enough not to tackle the science because the science is real and true. This is an argument that they've concocted whether or not EPA has the responsibility and the authority to protect public health from pollutants. Makes a lot of sense to me that the answer is yes, the agency must do that.
So your work today, how much is focused on the environment and focused on some of the big issues that you've tackled in recent years?
Well, listen, I'm spreading my time across 4 categories. You know, I am advising.
A lot of categories.
Well, listen, it's not as big of a job as the one I had before. To answer your question before, I am on this side now trying to determine how well we did when we were in the driver's seat with policy and regulations. I believe we need public-private partnerships to invest in infrastructure, both the electric grid and water infrastructure, so I'm advising private capital there. I'm spending my time on university campuses like North Carolina A&T State University, my alma mater, but also as a fellow at Duke University, really continuing to talk about the importance of public service, partnerships, and policy. I'm serving on Environmental Defense Fund's advisory board. I want to stay active in the nonprofit space. And I'm doing some public speaking. I'm enjoying traveling the country, hopefully internationally, to talk about the wins and the successes of our administration and why we should continue to move forward.
Is elected office in your future?
Not in the near future. No, I am enjoying.
Long-term future?
Well, you know, none of us ever know what's down the road. But right now, I'm enjoying really being on the private side, spending more time with family, and being able to spend time with students, re-engage with community members, and really sort of have conversations with people about whether or not we or I have been pursuing the right policies for the past decade, and what should we do differently to be more successful in the future.
Lastly, when you look back at your time at the EPA, what I guess either surprised you, or what did you find this isn't working? What did you learn about the federal government that said, this is something we need to work on when we talk about, you're not going to tackle it maybe while you were in charge, but in the future, what needs to be changed? Communication and partnerships. I found that where we had effective communication and strong partnership with our states, we made the most gains. And the federal government, as it's structured right now, just isn't known for being effective communicators to their partners and their constituents. So I believe in over-communication, and I think we could have done a little bit more of that. If you're doing something good for people with taxpayer dollars, you should explain it, and they should see themselves in that action and your vision. We could have done a better job there. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Good conversation.
Thank you.